So today we're talking about what does it mean to lead strategy. And I think it's the most important responsibility that a leader has for a business. Be that business an MBA program, be that business a hospital, be that business a multinational defense company. If you're a leader of a profit or a nonprofit organization, the most important thing you have to do is give that business a reason to matter. That's what I'm talking about today. And how did I come to understand this? It was working with managers like you, moving from theory to practice and really trying to understand what makes a company great. And so I want to start with where we were, how we thought about strategy. And I'll be honest with you, I was part of the problem. I've been trained in a very technical way of looking at strategy, doing large sample statistical analysis, and looking for regularities across industries and across firms. And it was a heady day in strategy when analytics came in. But unfortunately, what happened was analytics drove out management, drove out people. And so to start with what analytics brought to us, and it's good stuff, but it's not the whole story. So what they did, if you think in the last 25 years for strategy, they said, what's the primary objective? What are you trying to do if you're leading a company and developing its strategy? You want to beat the competition. That's what it's all about, beat the competition. And we really got fixated on the competition. We said, what does it take to do this well? If you're putting together an MBA program and you're teaching strategy, what's in the curriculum? What's really important? And what's happened is that we've moved from strategy being the province of the president to being the bailiwick of the analyst. And we've trained umpteen consultants, but we've lost the role of leadership. So strategy became a left-brain analytical exercise. I think it's something more, and that's what we'll be talking about. And then we go on and say, and what's the goal? What really are you trying to achieve as a company or as a nonprofit organization? It's a long-run, sustainable competitive advantage. Have you heard that? Is that what you're trying to do? Right? A long-run, sustainable competitive advantage. Right? Okay, now, I'd like to see a show of hands, the people from the businesses in this community that have a long-run, sustainable competitive advantage. We've got one. Hey, that's never happened. All right. So we have a very distinguished fellow over here, right? But let's face it, he's a little bit odd, a little bit unusual. It doesn't happen very often. And if that's what you think you're going for, think again. Because it's, unless you're very, fortunate as our friend is here, it's very unlikely that that's going to be the story of your business or the story of your career as a leader. I think we need to think about this in a different way. And lastly, when does it happen? Strategy happens annually, on time, during the long-run strategic planning process. You get together, you don't laugh, you don't acknowledge any emotions, and you just do it. I don't think so. I think we've got to think about what does it mean to do this in a robust way, in a meaningful way, and what does it mean for a leader's life to be a strategist? So this is where we're starting from. It's not bad stuff, but it's only half the story. So what I want to talk about is the other half of the story, which, as I said, I learned from managers like you. So I think it's time to reimagine strategy, to really think about, I could say time to rebrand strategy, but even deeper to reimagine it, to really think about it in a much more vibrant way, a way that's much more connected with leadership. So to start, most people think that strategy is about beating the competition. I don't think so. If you're trying to beat the competition, what it's saying is, I'm here, you're there, and I'm judging myself relative to how well I'm doing relative to you. Well, the first thing that happens there is we start looking alike. Our strategies tend to converge. And basically, you get to a situation of symmetry because you're judging yourself by other people who you're aping, you're imitating, you're trying to do what they're doing. I think what strategy is about is meeting an unmet need. It's about doing something unique or something uniquely well for some set of stakeholders. You've got to start with the customer. You have to really understand what the needs are of the customers you're serving or want to serve. Don't start with the competition. Start with the customer. So that gets you to purpose. What is the purpose of your business? And John Brown said, purpose is who we are and what makes us distinctive. It's what we as a company exist to achieve. It looks easy. But what I have found from working with literally thousands and thousands of managers like you is, let me tell you about an experience with this. We do a Nike case, and every year they fall into the same trap. And they start talking about Nike and say, hey, Nike's a really authentic company. I say, yeah. Is that important? Oh, yes, it's really important to be authentic. And I say, and what's the purpose of Nike? And they know that. They've read a case. They've read 4 pages on it. They know what Nike's purpose is, and they can talk about it. Is purpose important? Oh, yes, purpose is important. But think about it. Do you really know? What is the purpose of your organization? And then press yourself like we were pressing your answer, that go beyond the obvious, right? Or do you sound like everybody else in your business, that you're doing the same thing they are, right? For the same group of customers. So why does the world need your business? Why does it need your organization? And it's with that question strategy begins. Here's a little test. And this is where I need to know that you're alive. We've chosen to side with the many, not the few. Our concept is to offer customers an extensive range of practical, well-designed furnishings at low prices. And by doing this, we will give people a better everyday life. Any idea? Who? Think about that. It's 2 lines. 2 lines. And do you notice they didn't say, hey, we're a furniture company and we hawk furniture at cheap prices, right? They didn't say that. It's a very specific example so that you and every other audience I've spoken to around the world knows who this is. They don't just say they're in engineering services. They say we're a particular furniture company, and this is what makes us particular. And you got it. That's who it is. It's IKEA. 2 lines. Everybody in this room knew who that was. Who's this? Our company is built upon finding ways to do online search better and faster. You didn't even let me finish it. You've only heard 6 words. In an increasing number of new places and in ever more efficient ways. Who's this? Yeah. Think about, if we had more time, I'd ask you to take out a piece of paper and write down the 1 sentence. Write down the sentence that really captures who you are. To bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world, providing performance opportunities for those who could benefit, and offering empowering, inspirational messages for those who would listen. You got it. Nike. All around the world, they know it's Nike. So this is really what it's about. It's not about the Harvard Business School. It's not about IKEA or Google or Nike. It's really about your business. It's really to get you to think about what's the purpose of your business, who are you, and why do you matter? Guy Kawasaki says it this way. He says, make meaning, then make money. And when I think about this, when I think of making meaning, I don't mean it just in a philosophical, emotional sense. I mean it in a nuts and bolts, cold-hearted economic sense. You as a player, if you're in a nonprofit company, you're competing with all kinds of other nonprofits for resources, for opportunities to make a difference. What you have to think about is why, as a player in that market, do you really bring something that wouldn't be there without you? What is that? And why is it that that matters? So make meaning and then go on to turn it to money. You know, we spent a lot of our time talking about purpose because, as I said, that's where strategy starts. It's not where strategy ends. It's just where it starts. It's a way to stake a claim. It's to say, this is who we're going to be. And if you play poker, how many of you play poker? Do you know? Poker? I know you play slots, but do you play poker? Right? So it's like the ante of the game. To earn the right to sit at the table, you need to have clarity of purpose. But it just gives you the right to have a seat at the table. But winning takes a lot more. Because a purpose is just an idea, right? And ideas can be copied, right? You say, hey, here's my great idea. Oh, I think I'll do that too, right? It's easy to copy. It's just an idea. So how do you take that idea and really make it into a competitive advantage? So that's what I want to talk about now. To do this, I like to talk about Gucci. And not because only they have great handbags and, you know, sexy fashion and all of that, but because it was one of the most fabulous turnarounds in the history of business. And we're going to start at the bottom here. And that's in 1992. Gucci lost 50 million on sales of 200 million. Think about that. That's hard to do. 50 million on sales of 200 million. And the grandson of the founder, Maurizio Gucci, was the CEO at the time. And his dream of restoring the fashion house to basically the pinnacle of the industry had come to an abrupt halt. And he was canned in the process. What happened was sales were plummeting, the customers were indifferent, and internally the company was in a complete set of paralysis. And Investcorp, who was the private equity company behind Gucci, one of their managers said, you know, all the banks really love Maurizio. It was a really wonderful vision. Yet there was no consolidated statements, no definitive central management team, no business model. Not by dreams alone, not by purpose alone. Maurizio had a great purpose, but that's all he had. And Investcorp said, we want out. We want to sell this company. They got rid of Maurizio first, then they wanted to sell the company, and they tried to sell it for $50 million. $500 million, and had no takers. Nobody anywhere in the world was willing to pay $500 million for Gucci. And so they said, look, you know, let's dust it up and take it public, right? We want our money out, and the only way we can get our money out is to take this thing public. So they got a new CEO, a guy named Domenico De Sole, And he came in, and this is what the industry looked at like at the time. At the very peak, this is what we call the productivity frontier that goes down the right-hand side. They're the best-in-class firms in the industry. The combination of willingness to pay and the relative cost position of the firms. So those that are on the frontier are best in class. So way up at the top you have Hermes, which is where Gucci started out. Very high customer willingness to pay and high relative costs, but they were able to recoup those costs and the willingness to pay. And then all the way down to someone like Ralph Lauren, which is also very good at what it does. It's doing something different. The idea is that everyone along this frontier is doing something different. Their strategies are different. So that's where we started, and the company had crashed down through excessive licensing. There were 22,000 Gucci products, including Gucci Scotch, Gucci matches, Gucci tennis balls, and Gucci Coochie bags, right? 22,000 products, the brand was trashed, the willingness to pay was in the toilet. Maurizio came in at that point and he said, I'm going back to the top. I'm going to restore the glory of the Gucci company. And if you think about how often is in a turnaround situation, your impulse is go back, claim the hill, go back to who we were. And that's what he wanted to do. So he's heading from the bottom right back up to the top left immediately. And this is instead what happened, was he succeeded in increasing the relative cost position, but didn't move the willingness to pay. And they were way off the frontier and on the verge of bankruptcy. They brought in a new leader, and he didn't start with the instinct that we need to go back to who we were. He said we need to figure out who we're going to be. And let's take a clean sheet of paper and think afresh. What he said was, let's go there. Let's be a company that's known for fashion-forward, high quality, and get this, good value. Now, I know some of the men in the audience, if their wives came home with these goods, might say, good value? Are you kidding me? But they meant it. Good value in the designer fashion world. That's who Gucci was going to be. So he had that clarity. He understood what they were bringing to the market. And then what he did was he built a whole system of value creation that was based on that purpose, that brought that purpose to life. You can look around every single one of these elements, and what you found is that they remade every part of the company. One of them was design. They had two designers they could choose from. One, named Tom Ford, was a commercial designer, and he cared a lot about the commercial aspects of the products. He was also extremely good-looking. And what they decided to do, and I say, Domenico, let's get real. You're telling me you picked Tom Ford because he's good-looking? He said, yes, yes. I wanted to make Ford a star because I needed to jolt the customer. I needed to jolt the world to realize this is a new Gucci. So it was a very risky play, but he did it because the company was in desperate throes. If you look what happened with prices, 30% overnight. He reduced prices 30%. I said, Domenico, wasn't that a risky thing to do? He said, no, not doing it would have been risky because given who we wanted to be, I had to do this. I had to send a very strong signal. They changed over their customer group from women like me to a lot of women like you in the audience. They said, we're going to go for a younger crowd, and we're going to do it because they buy more often. They buy 4 times a year versus the classic style, which is once a year. So they changed their customers. They let their customers go and brought in new ones. So basically, every single aspect, every activity in the company was changed over to bring it in alignment with the new purpose. $8 billion was what they got when they took it public for a company that 500 million was out of reach just 5 years earlier, right? But he remade the whole company by starting with a new purpose, by building an incredible system of value creation designed to deliver exactly what was in the core. So here he is. He says, you know, some companies have great strategies and they do a lot of talking, but they don't get it done. I follow through. And if any of you have been in those kinds of discussions that say, what's more important, strategy or execution? Just look those people in the eye and say, you got to be kidding. You need a great strategy and you need a great execution. And if you think about strategy like this, as a whole system of advantage, what you see is that strategy is not just an idea. It's a set of interconnected activities that are directed toward one whole, toward one purpose, right? So this is how you connect an idea with a reality of being something in particular and doing that something in particular particularly well. So this is how we link ideas and action. So when you came in, you probably thought strategy was all about thinking great thoughts. I don't think so. As a leader, in the leader's hands, I think strategy is about setting an agenda and building an awesome organization to carry it out. And you tailor the organization, you tailor it to do exactly what it is you're promising to deliver. It's how you deliver on that promise. So here, I gave you a blank copy. Fill it in, right? You've got to start with what is that distinctive purpose that's in the center. And then think about all of the activities that your organization does. And how do they align? And how do they row in the same direction? And how do they support that purpose? And notice at the top, I call it the animating force of a company. And this is, again, going from, it's just an austere idea that's in some office someplace. That strategy should be, and I really believe this, it should be the lifeblood of your company. It should be the energy that pulses through, that tells everybody in the company how what they do matters, how what they do is connected to a purpose that is sitting on top of everything that happens in the company. It's the animating force, the energy in a company. So a compelling purpose backed by a system of advantage gives you a difference that matters. It means that if you disappear, there will be a hole in the world of those you serve. Somebody came up to me once and said, afterward, politely, didn't say it during the talk, he came up afterward and he said, Cynthia, I don't really think we're changing the world. And I said, well, where's your business? And he said, well, it's in Ohio. And I said, well, where's that? Isn't that in the world? Right? You don't need to change the whole wide world. You have to matter to the people you serve. So if you do disappear, that there would be a hole. And frankly, if you don't have that difference, nobody will mourn your organization if it's gone. And think about it. If they wouldn't miss you then, how much do they really need you now? So, what's it all about? What are you really trying to achieve by having this purpose, by having this system of advantage? Is it a long-run sustainable competitive advantage that accumulates such a powerful lead that no one can catch up? Is that what it really takes for an organization to endure? Is that a realistic aspiration for those who are leading an organization? And when I talk about this, I like to talk about these guys. This is Apple's annual report, the first annual report they ever filed in 1980. And here we have Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak with the shades on the right. They said, bringing technology to individuals, we believe, is the extraordinary business of this decade. And that's what we're going to do as Apple Computer. Bring technology to individuals. And they really did have a difference that mattered. They were very user-friendly. They were plug and play. They had the first electronic software calculator that really set them apart from any other players in the market. They were the most profitable company in the PC industry with the #1 market share worldwide. They really had a difference that mattered. But what happened was, as they developed products that were greater and greater, but incompatible with the rest of the world, and very high priced. This is the Lisa computer. It was insanely great, but insanely unsellable technology. And this is one of their own guys said, you know, hey, the Lisa, it was a great machine. We just couldn't sell any. If you invested $100,000 in 1991, by 1997, that would have been worth $23,000. This is the point when Steve Jobs was brought back to the company. And Michael Dell was asked at the time, what would you do if you were Steve Jobs? And he said, I'd close it down and give the money back to the shareholders. Right? This is Apple on the verge of bankruptcy. What can you all learn from Apple's experience? There are some things that are really particular to the PC industry, and we won't go into those. But there's something that all of us as strategists can learn from looking what happened to Apple. And that's the evanescence of a difference that matters. Whatever constitutes strategic advantage in your company will change. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. What does endure is the ongoing need to add value, the ongoing need to guide and develop your organization so it continues to matter, so it continues to be relevant. This is about forward motion. This is not about stasis. This is not solve the strategy problem, crack the case, and sail on forever with a long-run, sustainable competitive advantage. This is a leader whose responsibility is to make sure the company matters now and to set the company up so it will matter tomorrow. That's what endures. It's not any one strategy, any one competitive advantage. It's the constant need to matter, the constant need to be relevant. Picasso got it right. He said, success is dangerous. One begins to copy oneself, and to copy oneself is more dangerous than to copy others. It leads to sterility. So, in the past 25 years, thousands of articles and books, literally, have been written about strategy. But virtually nothing had been written about the strategist, or what it means to take on this role for a company. But you know, owning these questions that are at the very core of what an organization is and why it matters are really the heart of leadership. So I'm going to close by talking about being a strategist, taking up this role and living the questions in your company. This is from Stephen Covey's work on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And what you know is a lot of people talk about, for most leaders, finding time to address strategy is a constant challenge. And this is what he shows you, is that the urgent drives out the importance in many of our lives. And what you see is that you attend to the urgent things that are important, like crises and deadline-driven projects, You also do some things that are urgent, but face it, they're not very important, like day-to-day interruptions, day-to-day demands. And you also, frankly, we all do a lot of things that are neither important nor urgent. Email, trivia, busy work. But what oftentimes gets left are the things in the upper right-hand quadrant, the things that are very important, but they're not urgent. They're not in your face. And a lot of people say that's why companies are slow to embrace strategy, because leaders don't have the time. The urgent activities drive it out. But I've come to believe that there's a deeper reason a lot of leaders and organizations don't fully engage with strategy. And that's because they're comfortable with the way things are. Even if they're not scintillating, they're comfortable. Schumpeter, a great economist, said that for an economy to flourish, there have to be leaders who are willing to swim against the stream. And he said the whole difference lies there, between those who are content with things the way they are and those who want to build anew. He called these people, he described them as Mandertot. It's man of action. Now we call those people entrepreneurs. And what we know is that strategy doesn't start with a consultant. It doesn't start with an analyst. It starts with a leader. Behind every pulsating, vibrant organization that I've seen anywhere in the world is a leader who sees the initiative and made it happen. I'm on several boards of directors. I care deeply about strategy. And I can tell you that if it doesn't come from the CEO, if it doesn't come from the leader, it doesn't come. You need the courage to choose. As individuals in our own lives, the most powerful weapon we have to form our identity are the choices that we make. And the same is true for an organization. An organization's identity, its meaning, its real significance has to be made. As leaders, it's yours to create. The existentialists talked about this a long time ago. They said existence may be given, but essence never is. Essence is something that has to be made. Sartre said, everything has been figured out except how to live. There's a future to be fashioned. This is where existentialism and strategy come together. It's about creating essence. Contrary to popular views, strategy isn't a question to be solved and settled. It truly is a set of questions to be lived. And when people come to our executive programs, we work on their strategies. I think they go home with something they feel good about. But that's not really the greatest thing they leave with. The greatest thing they leave with is an appreciation for the questions. Because whatever is on the piece of paper when they leave is going to grow old. And understanding the questions and having the courage to move the company forward is what's most vital for them going forward. So just as it's impossible to build watertight ships that withstand all contingencies, you cannot remove ungoverned chance from human life. And the balance in any strategy is a fragile integrity. It's 2001, a new purpose. Look at the words and how they talk about what we were talking about all afternoon. If there ever was a product that catalyzed what's Apple's reason for being, it's this. It combines Apple's incredible technology base with Apple's legendary ease of use, with Apple's awesome design. Those three things come together in this, and it's like, that's what we do. So if anybody was ever wondering, why is Apple on Earth? I would hold this up as a good example. And here's the stock price that goes with it, right? A new purpose, a new reason to matter. And halfway through this journey, Apple Computer changed its name. It's now simply known as Apple Inc. So here's the new way of thinking. Strategy's the primary objective is not just about beating the competition, it's about meeting unmet needs. Think Steve Jobs. The skill set is not just a left brain analytical exercise, it's about the whole brain, the left brain and the right brain. Analysis, creativity, thinking, feeling. The aspiration is not a long-run sustainable competitive advantage, any one advantage. It's about an organization that continues to matter. The process is not just the annual strategic plan. It's an ongoing, continuous process. And what I've learned from working with thousands of managers is that you don't need to be Steve Jobs to feel great about the organization that you've built. So I want to close by asking you not what would the world be like with and without your organization, but I want you to think about what your organization would be like with and without a strategist. What if nobody rose to the challenge? What if nobody stood up and said, I'll take the responsibility for these questions? What if nobody weighed the options and chose what the organization would be, to whom it would matter, and why? Because if you don't make these choices, you end up somewhere in the middle, an indistinct as opposed to a distinct place. And if the core of that strategy wheel is indistinct, think about how it reverberates throughout the whole model. If it's indistinct and fuzzy and blurry and insignificant in the middle, you bet it'll be that way around the whole model. What if nobody helped to build a system of advantage or value creation that enabled your organization to do something in particular, particularly well? And what if nobody watched over the organization and kept it vibrant and moved it ahead? Think about it. Would you want to work for a company like this? Would you want to be a customer of a company like this?